Hello, Ivor here. This podcast is concerning, or at least relating to, why I am so glad that the Sussexes escaped from the UK and Brexit. Here we go. My podcast today is centred on my joy that Harry and Meghan managed to escape from the slavery regime in an opulent setting and were successful in leaving Shutter Island, otherwise known as the UK. I will give an overview of the UK post-Brexit on the backdrop of the 4 years of what is officially described as negotiations and discussions, but in reality can also be described as clownery. And the latest fabulous term to describe all of this is discussions and negotiations conducted by a carnival of so-called experts. I will highlight the impact of Brexit discussions and the outcome to date with samples of various groups in UK society, and in doing so, show how the forces acting against the Sussexes replicated the impact of the change in the fortunes of some, and how they showed their revenge towards the couple who chose to stop being the prey and outwitted the hunters. So, I will touch on the impact of Brexit on the following examples: businesses, UK government, Europeans working in the UK, UK citizenship, and, as a result of the above, the impact on the Sussexes leaving the royal family in terms of the status of a working royal, the British media, royal reporters, the royal family and its operation moving forward, the monarchy and its place in a post-Brexit Great Britain, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland. Would they seek independence from Great Britain and or join the EU? The impact on Harry and Meghan. Where are we with Brexit? Where are we with Harry and Meghan 11 months after stepping back and leaving the UK? What will the effects be on UK exports? What will the effects be on people leaving the UK, particularly Europeans leaving to work in other countries? The termination of freedom of movement and transition to new immigration systems could result in a short-term shrinkage in the workforce. The UK has already seen a 70% reduction in UK migration since the 2016 referendum. This is an issue because until new positive net migration has made up for an ageing homegrown workforce. Do you start to see any correlation here with other things that have occurred on Shutter Island? How will Brexit affect the supply chain? It may be the case that strategies which once proved profitable simply will not be moving forward. It is best to review the suppliers' relationships and make any changes where necessary. What will the effect be on the British royal family of Harry and Meghan leaving? Just like the UK, the monarchy did not look at its workforce and the ages, and therefore the obvious gaps in resources. It was assumed that Harry and Meghan would continue to be the workhorses of the monarchy, and that Harry in particular would do so out of duty to the Queen and country, and possibly his brother, and that Meghan would do it for the prestige. I mean, a self-made woman who could afford to and did buy her own eye-wateringly prestigious clothes and jewellery long before she stepped onto Shutter Island. She married for love, and their love can take place anywhere. Very few, if any, in that family would have the backbone, let alone the skills, to survive outside the protective elitist environment of the UK monarchy. Those that could survive by the income alone would never leave, because they enjoy the perceived power over their citizens, where too many have been indoctrinated to believe that the UK is better for having a figurehead family at the helm, exhibiting opulence and power, just like the days of the Empire. It allows UK citizens to feel good about themselves, even if they are impoverished, because the royal family is at the forefront, showing the world how rich and powerful we are, that we can afford to play house in buildings that the country can afford to resource and maintain, whilst UNICEF and high-earning sports people, along with a host of voluntary organisations, are feeding UK children in many neighbourhoods. There are ways to prepare for the potential dip in the workforce and mitigate its negative impact. Some examples are: upskill the workers already situated in organisations, invest in them long term, upskill the workforce already in place, invest more in the women. Business survival in a time of uncertainty will depend on the ability to make the most of what you have. As leaders come to rely on their workforce more, use management and business tools to better cater to their needs and help them to develop their existing skills and acquire new ones. I've used references here in some of those examples from lightspeedhq.co.uk and also sage.com. What you do not do is give the figurehead from the organisations a crib sheet to read off, outlining plans and projects which they have no understanding of, have no intention of doing any work towards any rolling out of said project, or contribute to ensure any outcomes are achieved. What you do not do is call upon the same worker bees that have always been called upon to do the actual work, whilst the same people act as figureheads for the photo opportunities at the launch and completion of said project or projects. Eventually, the same worker bees will no longer be there, and therein lies the problem of many organisations, including the firm. I took a look at a number of surveys asking people their views about the UK post-Brexit. These are a few quotes from one of them, a survey from Quora, and it took place in 2017. These are just bullet points, but it gives you an idea of where I'm coming from and also the linkage with Harry and Meghan and the royal family. Society has become very divided, was one answer. Prior to the Brexit vote, I saw Britain as a liberal Western democracy with an identity, tolerant and kind nature. Now I see it as a conservative, protectionist, unwelcoming and intolerant society. Another quote: I am actively looking for ways to acquire a passport from any EU country. They now embrace the values I cherish more than the country that taught me to cherish them. Will the monarchy be affected by Brexit? There's been a shift of opinions in some areas. One said that the monarch is a safety gap to act if Britain is in some kind of crisis. Some say Britain is in crisis now. If the monarch stays silent, then what is the point in having one? What level of crisis would have to occur for the monarchy to be useful? The Great Britain monarchy will become just the British monarchy once Scotland has left the UK, as it is certain to do. The UK, the government ministers who have been involved in Brexit negotiations, and the royal family are running up and down the 7 stages of grief model that I've used before, surprised at the outcome of their own actions, and are now scurrying to save face and try to convince the stakeholders that all is well and that everything is going to be just fine. Like most things, calmer waters will eventually appear, but at what cost? How much turmoil could have been avoided, etc. Typical behaviour from the Carnival of so-called experts. You will recall that the 7 stages of grief covers shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing the waters, and then acceptance. At the moment, it is just a scurrying up and down that model. Taking the main points mentioned in the podcast so far, Meghan and Harry are doing just fine. How much power does the Queen really have? In legislative matters, in terms of written confirmation, very little. But in practice, agreement is reached on certain things before they become written into statute, behind closed doors, in conversations with sympathetic ears, hidden under the guise of protocol. Goes back to previous publications and articles of mine. As long as the British royal family, British media, royal reporters, and government depend upon each other for survival, then there will never be honest and ethical reporting. Harry and Meghan did the right thing to leave the UK, and despite what the media and their associates produce in print to say otherwise, there is no law that exists to prevent anyone from leaving the British royal family if they so wish. By the same token, the way children are indentured into that family is against all basic human rights legislation, and I hope one day a brave international legal team will look at this area in more detail. Other factors regarding the illegal acts against children or people who perpetrate such acts on children are in evidence within the UK monarchy and have been for generations, in tandem with people in other high-profile professions linked with the British royal family. And, as is usual, blind eyes are turned in respect of this activity. Harry and Meghan are right to remove their family away from this environment for a whole host of reasons. Time waits for no one. There has been no obvious look at how the British royal family would function in the future, in terms of more than half of its workforce, in inverted commas, on paper, are 65 years of age and above. No thought of how things may have to change to work with the resources that they will shortly have, not what they have always had. No consideration to look at the skills needed in the future to deliver outcomes. I would argue that no skills of any kind have ever been considered, just an assumption someone would be given the notional task because of the title, their title, not their ability to manage it. The royal family was happy for Harry to be the workhorse, even if they probably were amused by his work efforts, compared to their hand-waving and smile efforts. But when Meghan joined the firm, and the couple became such a strong force, which outshone all of the other members combined, it became an issue. No member of the family could even pretend to justify standing in their shadows, let alone be able to do any task at all in any of their projects. Yes, Harry and Meghan were right to leave. The world needs a humanitarian power force like them. No one needs what the UK believes they have, and in reality it is much, much less. The monarchy exists because of a handful of groups at the top who allow each other to operate the way they do in peace. If every person running for elected office had to publicly declare their thoughts on having a monarchy or not, things would change very quickly. At the moment, the public are not asked, and the notional Republican Party that exists to give the impression of being against a monarchy is part of the establishment, and its highest profile activity in recent years has been to chase and hound and criticise the only two people from that family who are not funded by the UK taxpayer and who do not even reside in the UK and who in fact own their own home on another continent. Yes, Harry and Meghan were correct to leave the UK. Since the 2016 referendum, Britain has become isolationist and intolerant, in my opinion, in too many areas. America, as an example, has its own share of intolerance, but at least they are upfront about it. The UK pretends to be this all-welcoming nation, but the underbelly is showing more and more, and the reality is very sad to see and experience. There is no doubt there was no welcoming space for Meghan in the make-believe existence of UK nobility. None. It is a group that breathes from within its core, in order to prolong the fantasy life they lead, away from the realities of life. Meghan came along and managed to tick all the boxes of things that this inbred group of people did not want amongst them, not least that Meghan was highly intelligent and had to work very hard for everything she had acquired in life, and more importantly, wanted to be of service to others. Harry had moved on from duty to service in terms of his life ambitions. This was a match made in heaven, but not welcome on Shutter Island. Yes, Harry and Meghan were right to leave. Rachel Johnson, sister of the UK Prime Minister, wrote in the Mail on Sunday that if the couple had children, the Windsors will thicken their watery, thin blue blood and Spencer pale skin and ginger hair with some rich and exotic DNA. As I've said a few times in this podcast, and has been reported more than a few times in the media and on social media platforms in particular, she belongs to the group that is rightfully described as part of the carnival of so-called experts, and that is the politest thing I could probably say on this podcast about her and her colleagues. The clownery and belief of being better than others is off the scale. Yes, Harry and Meghan were right to leave the UK. The monarch stayed silent on so many things which impacted the UK, and as for the silence on the abuse and harassment of the Sussexes and their child, and the incitement of risk to the lives of the Sussexes, Harry and Meghan were right to leave the UK. This country deserves what it is left with. I'll end on a few quotes from one of my books. I don't usually make a point of referring to anything that I've had published, but these are to do with Harry and Meghan, so I thought they were appropriate here. This is how I feel. It's a good way to end this podcast. Support will continue and probably increase for the Sussexes, whether they are inside or outside of the royal family. The location of this global humanitarian couple will not dim their light. Another quote. Trolls or royal reporters? Difficult to differentiate. Another quote. Conscious or unconscious bias? Constructive criticism? Do royal reporters reflect British society? And how does this impact on the monarchy and the Commonwealth moving forward? Does income generation become the guiding force over and above the law? And the final quote from the book. Once a person ceases to be recognised as a human being with feelings and fundamental rights of how they should be treated, then the slide down a very slippery slope has begun. And I repeat, I'll end this podcast with, yes, I am very happy that Harry and Meghan left the UK. That's it, folks. Bye for now. Bye.